This Smittybilt OEM style replacement soft top with tinted windows in black diamond is for those of you that have a two-door 2010 to 2018 JK that are looking for a factory replacement soft top that's going to look and function pretty much just like a factory top would. This is going to be a very easy 1 out of 3 wrench installation, but we'll talk you through that in just a second. So when you are shopping for an aftermarket soft top, you're really going to fall into one of 3 different categories. One is going to be what we're talking about today, a replacement soft top, and this is designed for those of you that already have a soft top frame, all of the hardware, and really just need the new soft material and the new windows. And these are going to be fairly inexpensive because they're not going to include a lot of hardware with them. If you're coming from a hard top or you have a soft top frame that's not in good condition, you would be looking for something in that second category, and that's going to be a complete replacement soft top. That's going to include things like door surrounds, all of the frame, your tailgate bar, all of your headers, everything that you need to get a soft top installed. Again, that's going to be a little bit more expensive, but very, very complete. And finally, the third category is something that is not an OEM style top at all. Those are going to be your fastback tops. They're going to look different, they're going to function differently. You're going to have a few different features built into them usually, and some of them are going to vary in price from more expensive than a factory top to less expensive depending on what features are included. But again, coming back to the top we're talking about today, this is a replacement soft top, so for those of you that already have a soft top and just need that new soft material. Now there are tops that are kind of all over the price range when it comes to a replacement top. There are some that are made of very, very high quality materials and may have a few additional features that are going to be very expensive. And then tops like this, these are going to be pretty much your basic run-of-the-mill top. There's not a lot of additional bells and whistles here. The material is not going to be a premium material, a sailcloth material, anything heavier than what would have come on this Jeep out of the factory. So if that's what you're looking for, something pretty basic, this can save you some money. So this is going to include the soft material, of course, all 3 windows. As it says in the title, these are the tinted windows, and this is designed to go directly onto that soft top frame. This is not going to be something akin to a premium material out of the factory. It's not going to be something like Best Top's twill material, which is very thick. It looks a little better, wears a little better, is more insulative. This is going to be a little bit more basic again. But if you're somebody who is running your soft top only in those spring and summer months and you're not looking for something that's going to give you a ton of protection from the elements, or you're somebody who just isn't looking for a lot of longevity from their top, they just want to throw something on there that's a little bit less expensive, this is going to be an excellent choice for you. So speaking of the price, this top is going to come in at right around $250, which is going to be a really good deal for a top like this. Again, a lot of them are going to be more expensive. Even other replacement tops that don't have a lot of other bells and whistles or don't include the frame are still going to be more expensive. So this is going to be on the lower end of the price range. So I mentioned before, this is a 1 out of 3 wrenches for the installation. Now let me show you how to get it installed on the Jeep. So like I said, this is a very easy 1 out of 3 wrench installation, and the first step is going to be removing the soft materials from your factory frame, and the first step in doing that is removing the windows. You simply zip them out and remove them from the Jeep. The rear window is going to zipper out just like the side windows. The only difference is that you will have to disconnect the tailgate bar from the window once the window is removed from the Jeep, and that will just slide out one side or the other. Now release the latches over the windshield. Now I'll put the top about halfway back so you can see the screws that we need to release for the next step. So it's going to be these screws that hold the fabric onto this hoop about halfway down the Jeep that goes directly over the soundbar that we'll have to remove next. The next step is going to be removing the 4 screws that go across the rear hoop. We have the top in a half down position, but whatever position makes it easiest for you to access these screws is going to be best. So while we have the top in this sort of half down position, we'll go ahead and do the next step, which is removing a couple of screws that hold the soft material onto the header, and also removing the cable tensioning mechanism while we're in this area. So we're going to do that on both sides before moving to the next step. So these 2 screws are going to be underneath a little bit of foam right from the factory. If your foam hasn't completely deteriorated and worn off yet, you can use a razor knife, a screwdriver, your fingernail, whatever it is, to clear some of that foam out of the way so you have access to the screw heads. So now that the screws are removed, we'll go ahead and remove the spring tensioner that is on the cable mechanism. Once the top is in this half back position, there is no tension at all on that cable. So it's very easy to just maneuver it so that it pops off of the small hole that's on the frame itself. Go ahead and repeat the process on the other side. The final step in the uninstall is to essentially put the top into the full up position just without attaching the top itself to the top of the windshield frame, and then flipping the entire top over itself onto the hood. What that's going to do is give us access to the last few screws that are holding the header onto the top. The final step is going to be disassembling the header so that it releases the top. The top is actually clamped between 2 pieces of the factory header. So in order to take that apart, there are a bunch of screws across the top of the header that need to be removed. Take your time, remove each of them, and make sure that you know which screw goes where, because there are a couple of different types and you want to make sure you put them back in the right spots. Now that all the screws are removed, you can take the top half of the header off, which will then allow the rest of the soft top to be released. Now that the factory top is completely removed, we can start installing our new Smittybilt top, and that's going to happen in exactly the way that we uninstalled the factory top. So starting in the front with the top flipped upside down across the hood, and then attaching the header. Now, the header is the most difficult part of this install because you're trying to get 2 halves of the header lined up with the top in between them and then get some screws started. It will help to have an extra set of hands around, or in our case, we're going to use a little bit of tape to hold the top into the header just to get things started. that's going to be something that will make it a lot easier for you as well. Even if you do have a second set of hands around, having a little bit of tape there will be helpful, and I'll show you exactly how to use that in just a second. We'll go ahead and pull the top up toward the header. And there is a small piece of plastic that's sewn into the top, and that needs to lay in this front channel there, which it lays in there very easily. The problem is there's nothing to really hold it in place while you get the upper half of the channel lined up. So that's where we're going to use a little bit of tape. So we'll see if we can get it lined up left to right, pretty much where we want it. We'll grab a little bit of tape and see if we can pin it in place. So once the top is taped into the channel, you can take the upper half of the header, set it into place where it's going to go, and get a couple of the screws started. So once you have a couple of screws started holding the top into place, you can go ahead and install the rest of the screws across the top of the header. And this is where you want to be careful which screws you're using. These ones have a slightly larger head, and those are going to be the ones that go on either side where the header actually attaches onto the frame itself. Once the header is bolted back together and the top is firmly attached to the Jeep, we can flip the top over the rest of the frame and attach the couple of screws that go on the underside of the header. Once the top is flipped back over the rest of the frame, you'll flip the Sunrider feature back in order to access the two screws that go on the underside on either side of the top, and that's where the tensioning cable mechanism attaches onto the header. Now we can attach the end of the cable onto the header and the last couple of screws that attach this flap onto the header as well. Once the screws are tightened down, you can replace the weather stripping. The kit comes with a couple of adhesive pieces. The larger piece goes right here over top of those two screws. And then there is a more narrow piece that replaces this piece up here on the factory header. So we'll go ahead and peel off the factory piece. And then we just have to repeat the process on the other side. So the next step is to attach the cable onto the header. This is what's going to give all the tension to the top, and the last little bit of fabric that attaches the top onto the header also goes in that same spot. So this is reinforced with a little bit of plastic. The plastic is obviously pre-punched, but the material is not. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. You can find the way that works best for you. What works best for me is to actually get the screws, again, this is the factory hardware, started through the plastic. So you can set it right through the plastic and then thread it through this fabric material. So once you get it started there, it just makes it a lot easier to line it up through this metal plate and finally into the 2 holes in the header. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So once those screws are started through the fabric, it's a lot easier to line up the metal plate that's attached onto the cable. Like so, and then get the whole thing lined up with the 2 screw holes in the header. Once those are tightened down, there are a couple of small pieces of weather stripping that you'll want to attach. The first piece goes over top of the heads of the screws that we just drove in. You can see where the old weather stripping was. This is pretty well flattened down. We're going to just leave that in place and go over top of it. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and remove that before putting the new weather stripping down. Then there's also a narrow piece that goes in the front here. This factory piece is still there and in pretty good condition, but we'll go ahead and replace it anyway. So once that weather stripping is stuck down in place, the last step that you really have to do while you're in this position is attaching the other end of the cable with the spring mechanism onto the soft top frame. So that's going to go in that factory location. You can just go ahead and loop it from the inside out. Now we'll flip the Sunrider closed in order to line up the top with the rest of the frame to install the rest of the screws. So now we have the back half of the top flipped up so you can see what we're doing here. You can also do this with the top in a half up position from the inside of the vehicle. Again, whatever makes it easiest for you to reach the top and the bar and attach these screws. What's most important about this step is that this seam, which is actually on the top of the top, is lined up with the top of this bar when you attach the flap onto the bar. If you pull this flap too tight or leave it too loose, you will visually be able to see that from the outside of the Jeep when the top is up. So go ahead and line up the top seam here with the top of the bar, wrap the flap around the bottom of the bar, and then you can take one of those factory screws, go through the flap into the existing threaded hole that's in this crossbar. And you just repeat that process all the way across the bar. Now we'll flip the rest of the top back in order to screw the top to the rear bar. We'll put the factory hardware through the tab in the material and into the frame, just like we did on the other hoop. Once the top is fully screwed onto the frame, you can go ahead and attach the top onto the windshield frame. Once the top is attached onto the top of the windshield frame, you can attach the rear corners into the J channel on top of the tub. Finally, you'll be able to install your new windows. Before we install the rear window, we'll install these elastic loops. These are there so that when you roll up the back window, you have a way of storing it so it doesn't just unroll and roll back down on you. So these have a built-in snap, and there's also a snap on the inside of the factory soft top frame. So all you need to do is line up the snaps and give them a little push. And one over here. Before zippering the rear window into place, you have to install the tailgate bar onto the window. This is a very simple process. There's a small piece of plastic sewn into the bottom of the window, similar to the front of the top where we sandwich that into the header. You're gonna slide that into the open track on your tailgate bar. So once you get it started here, it should go pretty easily. And once that's done, you can go ahead and zipper the rear window into place. So if you are looking for an inexpensive and basic replacement soft top for your JK, I would recommend this choice from Smittybilt, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.